Welcome back. All right, career video time and Brian Propp. So there's a through line here between the careers I've been doing, where I go from Denny Savard to Chris Chelios and now to Brian Propp. And Brian Propp's career was affected by Chris Chelios. We will get to that. Brian Propp was a number 14 pick in the 1979 draft, arguably the greatest draft ever. But you can have an asterisk in there because that's when they lowered the draft age. So technically, it's a lot of really highly rated prospects all becoming draft eligible at the same time. So Brian Propp, he makes the NHL that first year out of the draft, 79-80. 80 games played, 34 goals, 41 assists, 75 points for the Flyers. The Flyers, a very good team who had won the Cup just 5 years prior. He has 19 games played in the playoffs, 5 goals, 10 assists. He was at the All-Star game, and they made it to the finals. So for Brian Propp coming out of year one, he had to be saying, this seems pretty easy. I go out there, I score almost a point a game, I get almost a point a game in the playoffs, we went all the way to the finals, championship's right around the corner. 80-81, his totals take a bit of a hit, but there are sophomore slumps. 79 games, 26 goals, 40 assists for 66 points. 12 playoff games, 6 goals, 6 assists, 12 points for him with the Flyers. So, Brian Propp playing pretty well. 81-82, 80 games played, he goes above a point per game that year. 44 goals, 47 assists, 91 points. In 4 playoff games, you get 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points. And he went to the All-Star game for the second time in 3 years. But again, he has just that one Stanley Cup Finals so far. He wants that championship. 82-83, 80 games played, 40 goals. So that's back-to-back 40-goal seasons. 42 assists, 82 points. Just 3 playoff games that year, 1 goal and 2 assists. Now, his regular season was pretty good. He had 12 game-winning goals, which was first in the NHL. So, Brian Propp, pretty good. And as a left winger, gets more attention than he might have if he was on the right side. 83-84. I only say that because traditionally in hockey, your bigger stars and higher scorers are on the right side or down the middle. So when you've got a guy in the left wing that scores really well, it is definitely noteworthy. So 83-84, he plays 79 games, 39 goals, 53 assists, 92 points. Frustratingly for Propp, he never quite reaches that 100-point mark. In the playoffs, just the 3 games, 1 assist. But he's in the All-Star game again. And Brian Propp and Tim Kerr were 2 of the best young players in the game at that point. 85-86, 72 games played, 84-85 first. 76 games played, 43 goals, 54 assists, 97 points, which was a career high. 19 games in the playoffs, 8 goals, 10 assists for 18 points. And they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. So that is his second Stanley Cup Final. 85-86, 72 games played, 40 goals, 57 assists, 97 points. So this is a prime example that if he had played those other 8 games, he would have reached 100 points. But he doesn't reach 100 points that year. Just the 5 games in the playoffs, 2 assists, but he played in the All-Star game again. So that is 4 All-Star game appearances. 86-87, he only plays 53 games that year, 31 goals, 36 assists for 67 points. In the playoffs, he plays a lot, 26 games. 12 goals, 16 assists, 28 points, and it is a thrilling Stanley Cup final for the Flyers and for Brian Propp. But for the 3rd time in his career and in his time with the Flyers, they reach the finals and don't quite knock off their nemesis, which is Edmonton, the same team that beat them in 85 as well. So 87-88, 74 games played, 27 goals, 49 assists, 76 points. In the playoffs, 7 games played, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points. Again, he is above a point per game. He's playing very, very well. The Flyers, just not quite at championship level. Usually pretty good during the regular season, but in the postseason, they just can't quite get over the hump. 88-89. 77 games played, 32 goals, 48 assists, 78 points. Plays 18 games in the playoffs, 14 goals and 9 assists, 23 points. And this is where his career is influenced by Chris Chelios. In Game 1 against the Montreal Canadiens, he takes an elbow up along the boards from Chris Chelios, which caused a concussion. He would only miss 1 game because we didn't have the concussion protocols back in 1989 that we have now. If we had had the concussion awareness in 1989 that we have now, he would have been properly treated, and who knows, his career might have lasted a little bit longer. We know now that if you rush a guy back from a concussion, that can cause more harm than good, right? So he did come back, but it wasn't quite the same. And Philadelphia, that was the year Ron Hextall decided he didn't like Chris Chelios very much, and it started with the Propp hit in Game 1. So we moved to 89-90, and you see a remarkable drop in his totals. 40 games played, 13 goals, 15 assists, 28 points. He goes to the All-Star game, but Philadelphia wants to get younger. We're at a point now where the Flyers, they decide it's time to jettison off Brian Propp. He is traded on March 2nd for a 1990 second-round pick to the Boston Bruins. In Boston, his offense picks up. In 14 games after the trade, he records 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points. In 20 playoff games for Boston, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points. That's another Stanley Cup final. That's 4. So that summer, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He doesn't sign right away. Bobby Clarke is now the GM of the Minnesota North Stars. And it is easy to forget that Bobby Clarke managed the North Stars or had anything to do with them. He wasn't there for that long. But he knows Brian Propp, and so on July 25th, he signs him as an unrestricted free agent. And as a Minnesota North Star, Propp did pretty well. 79 games, 26 goals, 47 assists, 73 points. 23 games in the playoffs, 8 goals, 15 assists, 23 points. Guess what? Minnesota went to the Stanley Cup Finals. That is 5. 5 appearances in a Stanley Cup Final and 5 losses for Brian Propp. And when you look at it, 1980, they lose to the New York Islanders in their first. 1985, they lose to the Oilers in their second. They lose the third Stanley Cup that the Oilers win in 87. 1990, he loses to the Oilers again. So 5 times the Oilers win the Stanley Cup. 3 times against teams with Brian Propp on them in the finals. And then in 91, he loses to Lemieux and the Penguins in the final. So that had to be frustrating. 91-92, only the 51 games played, 12 goals, 23 assists, 35 points. He just plays 1 playoff game. 92-93, he only plays 17 games. So at this point, things are kind of breaking down for him. 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. He ends up being a free agent for quite a while during that summer. And on October 4th, he would finally sign with the Hartford Whalers. 65 games played for the Whalers in 93-94. 12 goals, 17 assists, 29 points. So the offense has dropped off dramatically. And again, you can see that his totals take a hit. 90-91 was a good season for him in general, but you can see that after that Chelios hit, he wasn't quite the same player. So he retires with 1,016 games played, 425 goals scored, which is 78th on the all-time list, 579 assists, 1,004 points, which is 90th on the all-time list. But what's interesting is the playoffs. 160 games played in the playoffs, which is a lot for a guy who didn't win a cup. 64 goals, 84 assists, which is the most career assists by a left winger. I believe he passed Bobby Hull on that list. And with 148 points, he has the most career points by a left winger in the playoffs. So Brian Propp, not a Hall of Famer. I get that. He never hit 50 goals. He hit 44 times, however, 30 a bunch of times. He ends up with 22 shorthanded goals in his career, which is 58th on the all-time list. 1987, he played in the Canada Cup, and he played with Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux for a lot of that tournament. 1992, he wins the Spengler Cup gold, so that's another gold for him. 1982 and 1983, he wins bronze medals both years at the World Championships when Philadelphia was out of the playoffs early. And not only that, but on the Goldbergs, if you're a Goldbergs fan, there is an episode that shows Barry Goldberg has a Brian Propp jersey. Of course, the series is set in the 80s. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit, just throwing that in there. And it was an interesting career for Brian Propp. It's a shame he never won a Stanley Cup, but he put up decent point totals. And, he played for 2 of the 3 teams I cheered for at the time. So when they go from one team I cheer for to another, it's kind of fun to watch. But yeah, the career of Brian Propp, and again, might have been longer, a little bit more fruitful, but concussions are rough, and that can cause problems, weeks, months, years later, as we now know, and may not have realized during the 80s when concussions were relatively common in game, and we were remarkably callous about them. All right, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.